So this is the Linux Foundation's antitrust policy notice. It's shared at the start of every Linux Foundation meeting. You can get more information on the Linux Foundation website, which is included on the slide here. And if you are a member of the Linux Foundation, you can contact Andy Updegrove for further information. Okay, with the formalities out the way, I wanted to share the AI System Bill of Material Compliance Management Guide. I've put the link in the chat. The plan today, and thank you for Shane for spending a bit of time on this, updating the format, and thank you for everyone else for contributing with other comments. But we're really getting close to the end of this, and I wanted to just go down. I think there were a few points that I wanted to bring up, and with the hope that maybe by the end of this meeting, we can say this is good enough to go to the OpenChain board to sort of ratify and approve the guide. Is that clear with everyone? So the first thing I noticed is that this has changed to an AI System Bill of Materials guide. The word system has been added in here. Previously, we called it an AI Bill of Materials. I have no objection to this, but I just wanted to hear if there's any comments, if there is a general consensus for adding the word system in here. I know SPDX changed their SBOMs from software bill of materials to system bill of materials, so that's the reason why system is there rather than software. But just curious to hear what people's thoughts are on the addition of the word system. Is this becoming standard practice in the community?
This is Casey. It may have been, I'm not sure exactly what the doc is, if this is the same one that I had commented in pretty substantially.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. So system is actually in compliance or in alignment rather with the EU AI Act. Numerous government, we'll just say entities refer to systems. And so I dropped numerous links in one of my comments about that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. And I will say, Casey, that Shane took a lot of your comments and just sort of accepted them because they were so obvious to accept. And so therefore they've been translated into this document. And I think the link in the chat, I've probably put this one in here, which I think is the old document. So let me put what I'm sharing on the screen in the chat. So we can delete that. So thanks for that, Casey. I appreciate that that addition. I was unaware of this. Okay, so there are still some additional sort of minor commas and things added in after Shane had done that major update, after Casey had added a lot of things. But there were...
I'm not sure about anybody else, but can I get you to make that larger, the doc?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Is this better?
That's a lot better for me. Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments on anything in particular that they want to raise? Otherwise, I'm just happy to go down and pick up the remaining comments to be discussed. Hearing none, happy to down. And Casey, if there is something that you particularly remember adding a large chunk to, then didn't see what the difference was with Shane. I just know he'd taken a lot of your comments and accepted them and incorporated them into this document.
Okay,
if there's something that were missing, then please shout. So we've got the definitions here. Guidance. It looks like there's a small grammatical error here. This all seems fine. So this was missing around competence. Organization shall identify roles and the corresponding responsibilities of those roles that affect the performance and effectiveness of the program. And I just had The reason we do that is to ensure the responsible people are accountable for their contributions. So that was pending. So I've updated that. Awareness, there doesn't appear to be much to add. Program scope. This is fine. So licensing obligations. I know there were a few comments here added and changed and moved around, and I think Shane modified them. There was a comment here about data sets, but for some reason, I know he was here with Casey, transparency obligations. So it's not only for data sets, Casey highlights, and therefore do we want to find suitable alternative wording? Casey, anything to add here?
I'm just I'm looking at my comment again. Just one sec.
I'm not aware that transparency obligations apply to only data sets. From my experience and governance knowledge, transparency obligations may apply to how an AI system reaches a decision. And for high-risk AI systems, for example, you're required to maintain detailed documentation about the system's design, functionality, and compliance measures.
Yeah,
and we have
correct.
highlighted that a process shall exist for reviewing if there are any transparency obligations from regulations for models data, right? For a models data set.
Yeah, and there is the including but not limited to condition there. I personally would like to see it expanded a little bit. I don't know if anybody else has a comment on that or thoughts.
What would you propose we modify it to?
I would at least add the detailed documentation on design functionality and compliance measures, for example. I would just give a little bit more. That's just me. I don't know. Dave, do you have any thoughts?
Yep. Hey, I think this is a great observation, Casey. It's probably worth adding something about the point that you're raising. Some of the statutes refer to transparency specifically in the context of the input side, and some of it, as you point out, talk about it from the input side as well as the output side, meaning, sometimes they call that explainability to distinguish it from the transparency piece. So I have tended to use the word transparency, to avoid confusion in the context of data set, training set, transparency, to avoid the overlap with explainability. But there's inconsistency in the way that the statutes or the proposed regulations have been drafted and some of the established regulations. So I don't know if we should leave to any one, because the world is inconsistent right now. But having some of that, go ahead.
You were cutting out a little bit for me, but I think I heard everything. How about instead of process shall exist for reviewing if there are any transparency obligations from regulations, and then delete for models data sets?
Okay. Yeah, I think that gives us, some latitude.
Yeah.
I like that.
Do we want the brackets?
I don't think it hurts to leave it in there, but I think it's grammatically correct to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
Are we making a decision, keeping it in or taking it out? And this is the sort of thing that after we've written this guide, we can always provide guidance to this guide.
I think that left parenthesis out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So Yari made a point of transparency and the possibility that one may reveal private information. And there's this company called Tune Insight, and they have at least some level of solution to the problem. So I guess if a regulator says that we need to provide certain amounts of information, then it's saying we may reveal private information. I'm just wondering whether Yari's ex-colleague and co-founder of this company is around governance of that transparency obligation. Maybe we don't need to worry about this too much.
That's what I was thinking. If I understand correctly, what's the comment? I don't think that we should take a position on what's appropriate there. That's for somebody, whoever is being impacted, to do that assessment.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. Then why should here and not must? If the use case for a training data set creates a relevant issue in the context of transparency, then appropriate risk mitigations must be undertaken, should be undertaken. What do we think? My gut feeling for OpenChain has always been a should rather than a must.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
And Shane has put a reference 7. Does reference 7 actually go to anywhere? It does. Do we need any further references? Okay. So moving on then. So verification of the transparency. We have a documented procedure to review and document the transparency measures undertaken to ensure an organization is aware of the latest transparency obligations set out by regulators. Seems reasonable. So access, no queries or comments on access. And Casey, thank you if you've been putting the references in. We appreciate that. And that adds merit and value to the guide.
Sure thing.
Effectively resourced. This all seems fine. AI content review and approval. So we've got a few things we need to fill in here. There should be a process to review the AI content and have compliance approvals process. Have a compliance approvals process. There should be a process for tracking new regulations and informing those in the project of any additional requirements. We're still comfortable with that? Hearing no objection.
Can you scroll up just a little bit?
Scroll up.
Yes, there you go. Is this maybe repetitive a little bit? I guess what I don't because like what's the distinction with this?
Certainly with the regulators. So AI content review and approval. I don't think we defined AI content. I sort of agree. The fact that tracking new regulations, we definitely covered that previously.
And I guess when I read it, my first thought is, well, the content is the S-bomb. So that's probably not. I'm sure that whoever added this had a reason.
Yeah, let's flag this for possible deletion. It's a good catch.
Okay. So, AI system bill of materials. A process shall exist for creating and managing AI SBOM. This can be in any format. The AI SBOM shall account for inbound materials from third-party suppliers. Casey, you have a comment which reads, I believe that the intent is to capture much more than third-party software dependencies. For example, I'm not aware, however, that those listed formats would capture anything but that. Even though inbound materials is likely to be used to broaden the scope, I'd like for the team to consider providing more specifics. I feel that the AI bomb would be similar to a model card, but perhaps I'm unaware of prior discussions on the point, and that's too much for a bomb. I think it's possible too that an AI bomb for a proprietary AI system could be much different than an AI bomb for an open source AI system. Thoughts? Anything
Kind
to
of
add,
worried,
Casey, on
sorry.
that?
And that was before the whole system thing got adopted. But yeah, I just felt like this was too narrow, and that the scope it could actually be much larger. Maybe somebody can educate me. Just from my experience, SPDX and Cyclone is only capturing third-party, we'll just call it software libraries, whatever.
I see Victor's online, Victor Liu. Victor, do you have any comments? Because I know do you co-chair the SPDX AI bomb group?
Oh, no, I'm just a participant. I'm not even the author. Yeah.
Okay. But you attend those meetings. What is your thoughts on that? Do you think SPDX is only capturing things on inbound materials and software dependencies, or is it much more than that? What's the scope?
It is much more than that. Yeah, so. I don't know if you compare with Cyclone DX or not. Cyclone DX is a tree structure, whereas SPDX is a knowledge graph. So it's comprehensive in a way that you can relate the AI bomb and data hardware. Any concept related to whatever is already covered by SPDX, you should be able to cover the whole supply chain. Did that answer the question?
I guess
AC, what do you think?
And I'm transparently, I don't spend a whole lot of time in SPDX and Cyclone, but from my experience, I guess what it's not going to capture, unless somebody tells me otherwise, are data sets, for example, that are used. Is that wrong?
I think I probably lost connection. I didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, I said from my experience, for example, SPDX or Cyclone is going to pick up security vulnerabilities. It's going to give the tree. I'm going off in memory. It's going to give the component, the version. I think in some cases, maybe most, the actual license information. But anything that's related to a quote AI system that falls outside of that type of traditional information, I'll call it, would not otherwise be captured. So, for example, training data that was used for a model. I don't think that.
Yeah, I got your question now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So SPDX, you're talking about traditional use case, which is true.
Yes.
And but that's where the beauty of the knowledge graph is. It go beyond that. It does capture everything, including hardware, software, data, and even the operations. Yeah, so it is. I won't say it's completely developed yet. It's already there. It's still being improved. But the goal is to capture any aspect you can think of when it comes to supply chain in a knowledge graph format.
So even, and so I may be getting educated here, so thanks. So even code weights, training data, the data sets, it would be able to pick that up.
Yeah,
obviously the code.
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, and also see the comment. SPDX already have AI specific info, AI data, hardware. It's kind of all interrelated. In a knowledge graph.
Is it fair though? I'm just reading the statement here. It's for example, right? It can be in any format. For example, SPDX Cyclone. So what if SPDX and Cyclone just aren't used by an entity that has to produce an SBOM? I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I suspect that could be the case, depending on the type of entity.
At this point, when it comes to security dependency, so Cyclone DX is designed in a hierarchical tree. So that's why when it comes to dependency tracking, for example, especially software dependency tracking, it's easier to implement. However, when it comes to be able to have a kind of a very tightly defined knowledge graph, which is accurate, and the knowledge graph so it's use case specific, and I think what you just described is covered by SPDX.
Let me ask it a different way. Excuse me. Is there anything that it does not cover?
It doesn't cover when it comes to AI. I know there's just so many things, right? So it's hard to define. So right now, for example, when it comes to AI, there's other things that's not completely covered by the SPDX. But that's the beauty of knowledge graph. It's being built to be interoperable with other knowledge graphs. For example, MITRE has a thing called defend, which go into much more detailed defending and attacking and defending mechanism, including AI atlas, so-called meta atlas. So whenever those knowledge graph has been developed, then it will be built. So users of that knowledge graph can load both knowledge graph into the same database or even different database, so that it can be correlated using graph queries. Other example is data. SPDX doesn't try to capture all data formats because it is impossible. There's so many different metadata formats. So example is MLCommon have a thing called Croissant, which is a very popular AI ML data set capturing formats. And there are also like traditional non-AI ML that is being developed to add additional feature called BCAT, which is another data set format. And there are also C2PA, which is kind of a authorization tool that give you provenance of the region of artifacts for data sets. So that's the more granular. All this are much more detailed and sometimes even domain specific data set information. The goal is to be interoperable with those standards, but with SPX as a higher level of metadata overlooking the other type of metadata sets.
And maybe I'm being a little too hyper focused. I get when I see examples SPDX, Cyclone DX, then the assumption I would make reading this is that those two formats do always, I'll say, capture all quote inbound materials for an AI SBOM. I don't know that that's the case though, and so that's what I'm focusing on. If everybody else is comfortable with it, then I'm okay with that. But otherwise, that last sentence, the AI SBOM shall account for inbound materials from third-party suppliers. When I read third-party suppliers, that indicates to me it's under some sort of a commercial transaction only. That's just how because I live in an open source world. But maybe that's just me. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Well, I do, but this is a really interesting topic because I think inbound materials does do a lot of work, and some of the work I think is some degree of compromise between a couple different vectors that I think industry is still dealing with. One is sort of like the vector of increased disclosure, and then one is the reduced disclosure. And the reduced disclosure position, kind of is a reality of how the litigation still hasn't gotten sorted, and so the major model providers don't have guidance they can rely on, around what's appropriate fair use, and how that fair use concept might apply in other non-U.S. areas. And whereas the more disclosure vector is around enabling people downstream to be able to know the details around what went into the models, not just the actual digital inputs, but also the call it the training methods. And if you go and look at the EU AI Act Code of Practice materials, there's a model data card that they're putting out, and that is on the more disclosure side. But it's still not settled yet where that document's going to land and who's going to sign up to what they call the Code of Practice. And I also know the Code of Practice is designed to be more targeted at the bigger use cases, the bigger models, the bigger systems, I should say. So I think that we should try to land this in a place that's maybe a little bit more in the middle. That would be my personal bias, but I'm open to how other people want to address this piece.
So meaning leave inbound materials because it's kind of meets in the middle, and then materials or artifacts maybe, and then but what about the third-party suppliers?
So third-party software dependencies, right?
Right. So in my mind, third-party, that's just how I read it. Third-party suppliers seems like it's only capturing something under some sort of like just commercial terms or commercial transaction versus widening what inbound materials could be in question.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that. So I think about this a little bit from an open source perspective, and I feel like the question you're asking kind of gets to almost like installation information in the framework of like the GPL, but not perfectly. It's more like an analogy that I would draw. And the question that that I think needs to be asked is, if you have software that you're using as a method of training that isn't instantiated, as a derivative into the model itself, does that software need to be disclosed? And I guess I'm not that convinced today that outside of some of the more disclosing models, such as DeepSeek, that there's going to be a universal fit for that piece. For example, I would have to believe that there's techniques that some of the bigger model providers have developed that are going to be more like their trade secrets as to how they actually have approached some problems around training. And if that overlaps into, let's say, how they have prepared training scripts or even third-party software that they used for the training purpose but wasn't instantiated in the output, I don't think that we're going to convince the industry leaders to come along with that definition.
How about maybe it's the word supplier? What if we just say from third parties?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's proprietary, that's open source, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
just, it to me, it widens it. Suppliers just indicates it's a procurement type thing. And I know that's not the intent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a fine way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I see Matthew's already reflected that.
And just to confirm, we still want inbound materials.
I'm okay with that. Yep.
Yeah, same. Great, thanks.
Unless anyone has any major objections, close
Yeah,
that one off. Great. So I think this is the last one on governance. Yari's got a comment here. An organization shall have an AI governance framework. Guess we should correct the spelling there. Policies and practices to help ensure that AI systems are developed, deployed, and managed responsibly. Governance emphasizes compliance with emerging AI laws and regulations, such as the EU AI Act, and addresses ethical considerations, risk management, and transparency. For example, understanding the risk associated with ongoing use of AI systems and training data in context of their intended programs. This could include the ability to monitor the life cycle of an AI system and perform ongoing analysis of its intended uses. Organizations that have a responsible AI framework established should also have a process to manage the overall life cycle of AI models and data sets. I think this came from, who's from Cisco? Prasad from Cisco. I don't know if Prasad's online. To say that we don't just look at this in a sort of one-off snapshot in time, but to have a look over multiple time periods and have a framework in place to assess the risks over the life cycle of the model and the data set. So Yari makes a question. Are there some minimum requirements for the responsible AI framework? And if yes, would it make sense to add a reference here? Or is it section this of 42,001? So I think he's in reference to this comment here. Is anyone au fait with 42,001? Do they have it accessible and accessible that they can see if this is in reference to a responsible AI framework?
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, sorry, I was just wrestling papers looking for a copy of 42001. Sorry.
Yeah, it just in my mind. So I know there are several different types of frameworks that exist, and I think that, so this is a generic reference. Is this, I think for me personally, generally, I don't have an issue with this governance section. Is it a little bit, does it reach a little too much? I would hope that companies have this in place, but does it belong in the SBOM? I guess would be maybe my first question. And then I don't think we want to take a position on the framework to deploy. So I don't think that this generic reference is an issue from my perspective.
Having not gone to the source, but done a quick scan, this section of Annex B does refer to detailed implementation guidance for managing a life cycle of an AI system within an organization's AI management system. So I haven't read 42,001.
I think it's good. But then does there need to be follow-on work in here related to that, or is it just intended to be, a company must have a responsible AI framework in place?
Mm-hmm.
like
Do
this.
we need to change this then? Instead of to refer to models and data sets, we look at the life cycle of the AI system bill of material and ensure it's still relevant and kept up to date. So there's governance on the AI SBOM rather than the model and data set.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking at the first sentence and the last sentence. I feel like the first sentence does enough of the work that we don't need the last sentence. In my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
And the reference as well.
Yeah.
Because the reference refers to responsible AI.
So here's the way that if I feel strongly about 42001, I will ask my suppliers, to cite to support of this specification, but also 42001, right? So I would try to avoid restating too much of 4201 because our work here ideally would be very complementary to that, and be able to be read consistent with that if people were to want to go down that path, but not require it. So that optionality I think is the sweet spot for the work that we're doing here.
Dave, do you feel that, I agree with that. Do you, and again, I'm fine with the concept of governance, obviously. In that very first sentence, should it say something maybe like, it is encouraged that an organization should, have, and then et cetera, in here versus it should have, like, I guess, does it overstep?
Oh, is it too strong?
Yes, it's like saying they must have it. Like, yes, they should have it, but instead of saying they must, should that it's encouraged that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess the what happens if they don't? Does that affect their ability to produce an AI SBOM? Probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the OpenChain, theory of trust, was around open source, was that if one doesn't have a good governance process to deliver traditional software materials, and they didn't have, let's say, the training, the governance team, and the procedures, then documented, then one's ability to rely on the compliance artifact, the SBOM, would be much diminished. And in this case, we're really talking about model cards, data cards, and so I think I land in the same place. I actually think that the importance of one knowing that there is a process, behind the scenes installed within the enterprise, and then also that the people that are delivering the cards are trained. I think that those things are important. So
yeah, it's a fair point. I wasn't thinking about it, sadly, from that perspective. So yes, good point. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so given we will keep this in and get rid of that last sentence, I guess we just need some verification materials and rationale. And I'm all in favor of reproducing similar work here. So I guess we need Documented framework. And I'm guessing we want something to review it. Thoughts on this? So we have a documented AI governance framework for the lifecycle of the AI system with a process to review the framework periodically.
I like it.
And the rationale. So what we got up here? So to ensure a process exists for, I'm going to just say for maintaining framework. A framework is needed to support the periodic review of the AI system. Can I have a similar acknowledgement that that seems reasonable?
Yeah.
Looks good to me.
So I'm going to accept all of these policy changes. If I can remember how to do it. Do I just click that? Yeah.
Oh, actually, trying to accept, there's a small typo I just noticed. If you go back to the first sentence on the subsection, an organization shall have, instead of an a. Take out the n. Well, because, what is it? A governance. Yeah, because it's multiple.
An AI governance framework. Okay.
A AI governance framework. Policies. Is that right? Is my grammar correct?
How about a governance framework for AI? Does that get us out of trouble?
Yeah, that works.
It's one of these things you could probably argue a lot either way. I'd have probably said an AI governance framework, but who am I to split over an N? Let's not waste more time over an N. If this works for you, Dave.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Just don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, I knew it was an N. Okay. I'm just going to accept that change. And I think we're there. I don't think there were anything else.
One thing that you talked about, Matthew, at the start of the call, was around bringing this to the board for ratification. And I wonder if we should, as part of that, propose a longer, comment period. So not as a final document, but more like a we have a document and we want to put it in a kind of a freeze state so that everybody can take a snapshot of this and digest it and provide additional, more public comment on it. And then we'll take those comments and then work on a, call it a final version of it. But
before we send it to the board.
Well, we can have it sent to the board and say, this is what we have. Would you guys support, putting this out for I call it a frozen state for comment in an extended period. The reason why I'm suggesting this period is because it would be really nice to be able to see where the code of practice, lands on the EU AI Act. This industry, it stands to evolve fairly quickly, and it's fine for us to, I think, evolve this particular version of it, even if we were to finalize it. But I just sense that there's going to be a lot more activity in the area of proposed model cards, given what the Code of Practice organization or the EU AI office has put out as part of that effort. So I want to try to future-proof this a little bit, even though I know that's kind of impossible.
Difficult, yeah. So, well, I think the first step is yes. The next board meeting, can you remind me, Dave? June something? I guess the question is, are we going to meet before then?
Yeah. Well, I'm not suggesting that we need to have another meeting. I feel like you do, that we have something that we can bring as a proposal.
So the 25th of June is the next AI board meeting. No, OpenChain board meeting. Maybe we propose cancelling the June working group meeting, subject to anyone saying otherwise. We go to the board on the 25th of June and we say we have something we'd like to freeze and give the board and the community an option for 6 weeks to comment. And then we go back to the board for a ratification. And in the intervening time in July, we can maybe review the comments in the meeting. I'm guessing the August meeting may be cancelled due to holidays, but maybe we can, by the summer, have gone through those steps to get to something that's finalized. Does that work?
I like that.
Great. I will propose it to Shane. Unless others have comments. I will like to say thank you to everyone, both on this call and in previous calls, for getting where we are.
This is great. A lot of good work went into this. Thanks for letting me participate in late stage.
That's great. I'm glad that you were able to. Yeah, thanks for the comments, Casey.
Yeah.
Good. Does anyone want to discuss anything else today? Hearing none. Happy to. Just before, I saw in the comment, is it Shinji? You'd asked to update the words such as EU AI Act and Hiroshima AI Process or Global AI Governance Initiative. I've updated those accordingly, but I don't think there's anything else in the chat. So happy to end the call.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.